the years, I've come across a lot of flight tips to help make my next flight better than the last. But I've also come across several tips that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. So we're going to get into that right now. I only found out about this maybe a couple of months ago, and I have verified it with a couple of flight attendant friends, and it's to avoid getting ice when you're on the plane. The tanks where the ice is kept and where the water to make the ice is kept, they aren't always cleaned that regularly. And so when you think about what could be lurking in the ice that they put in your cup for your drink, I don't know, kind of makes me feel kind of grody, but I'll be honest, sometimes I still do get ice in my beverages when I'm on the plane. I just like ice. I'm from Texas. We love ice. Maybe instead, see if you can fill your own personal cup up with ice that you get from a store at the airport and save that ice for your drink on the plane. Likewise, the flight attendants also added this extra tip in. If you're getting a cup of water that's coming out of the bottles that the flight attendants are serving you when they're doing dining service, that water is fine. But any other water that they use to make the coffee or tea is also coming out of these same tanks. So just something to think about. The water has been boiled, so I don't think I'm going to get sick from it, but I don't know. You use your own judgment, whatever makes you comfortable. The altitude and cabin pressure and the caffeinated beverages lead to your skin being dehydrated. If my travel plans doesn't include me needing to wear makeup, I like to leave the makeup off and put on a nice thick moisturizer before I even board the plane. Once you're on the plane, the recirculating air, of course, mixed with the altitude and maybe your cocktail that you're having, all of that is just pulling the moisture out of your skin. So if I can put on a thick moisturizer before I board the plane, then hopefully that will provide a barrier between my skin and the recirculating air and will prevent me from being just very dehydrated by the time I deboard. The next tip goes along with protecting your skin, and that is sunscreen. Sunscreen, sunscreen, sunscreen. If I have to say it in every video, I will. You've got to practice wearing your sunscreen every day. Even when you're just walking around in your daily life, put it on to protect your skin from sun damage and future skin cancer concerns. The sun rays can hit you at a more direct and intense angle than when you're on the ground, so please always wear sunscreen when you're flying, even if you're not sitting next to the window. Really quick, if you're finding this video at all helpful, please give me a thumbs up so that YouTube will share this video with other people. One thing you may not know about me is that on top of being a frequent traveler, I'm also a registered nurse. So one thing I try to be mindful of when I fly is to avoid getting dehydrated. The altitude mixed with the cabin pressure, mixed with other things like maybe having some alcohol, all contribute to you ending up being very dehydrated by the time that you get off the plane. Especially if you're going to be on the plane for more than a couple of hours, I would really encourage you to try to avoid things that are going to make you more dehydrated than you already would be. Things like avoiding alcohol, avoiding coffee, or other beverages that contain caffeine. All of these play a part on your hormones, and they make you go to the bathroom more than you think you would, and that gets you more dehydrated than you normally would be. So try to stick to things that are going to make you more hydrated, like water or maybe even a beverage with electrolytes in it, but doesn't have a lot of extra sugar, because that's a whole nother video in itself. Do you also have flight tips that you don't hear people talk about very often? Put them in the comments below, and I may make a follow-up video to this one and shout you out. Let's go back to the beverages, because I have another tip that may help you with any tummy troubles. Try to avoid drinks that have bubbles in it, either shortly before or during your flight. Just like that bag of chips that you took on the plane and then halfway through the flight, it's really big. Just like the change in cabin pressure that makes that bag of chips get bigger, so does your stomach. And if you put a lot of carbonated beverages in before or during your flight, the cabin pressure changes are going to make you feel bloated. They may even make you feel nauseated, and that's not good if flying already makes you nauseated in the first place. The next tip you may have heard before, but I do know a lot of people who haven't, and that's because it's a little unconventional. Did you know that you can technically freeze a bottle of water and take it through TSA security, but the liquid has to be absolutely 100% frozen solid. It can't be partially melted, it can't be slushy, anything like that, they will make you toss it. So if you can't get it out of your frozen cooler or wherever you're keeping it and get it through TSA before any of it melts, don't bother with it. Likewise, you can also bring a refillable cup like my Ravenclaw cup, gotta represent. You can bring an empty refillable bottle or cup of any kind through TSA and refill it at water fountains or at other kiosks for free. That way you're not paying $5 for every bottle of water. We all know that airport prices really add up. They're crazy expensive, crazy expensive. I don't think this next tip is going to come as any surprise, especially since 2020, but I like to take sanitizer wipes and wipe down pretty well everything. And the reason why I added this to this list is because I used to take hand sanitizer for my hands and then wipes for the table, but then I just kind of found that they make some really nice sanitizer wipes that I can use not only for my hands, but I can also use them to wipe down every surface on the plane if I need to. I can wipe down the bottoms of my shoes, and it works a lot easier for me than having to take hand sanitizer that really I can only use for my hands. It doesn't count against your TSA liquid requirements, but if your wipes come in one of those containers that has like residual liquid down in the bottom, you can't bring that through TSA if it's more than 3.4 ounces. I usually stick to the sanitizer wipes that are in the little like crinkly packet, so there's not a lot of extra sanitizer running around and I don't have to worry about that. This next tip is actually a 2-for-1. Book your flights in the morning. Now there's 2 reasons for this. One, you want to try to avoid any extra turbulence or storms that might come as a result of the changing temperatures that occur as the day goes on. The second tip is because if your flight ends up getting delayed or canceled, there's a better shot that you're going to be able to rebook on a flight later that day and still get to your destination. Whereas if you booked your flight later on in the evening, there's not a lot of other flights that you're going to be able to be booked onto to be able to get to your destination on time. Speaking of turbulence, seats near the windows tend to be more smooth when you hit a bit of rough air. The next tip I actually shared in my Amazon favorites video, and if you haven't watched that, I'm gonna leave it right here for you. But I like to keep a small bag with all of my flying essentials in it, like my lip balm, my earbuds, a pen, whatever I may need just for that flight. I like to put that in a small bag and then I hang it on the seat back in front of me with a hero clip. These 2 things save me from having to get up and down back into my bag to get stuff out. So I put all those things in a small collapsible bag. It doesn't take up a lot of space, but when I need it, I can unfold it, put all my stuff in there, hang it to the back of the seat in front of me with a hero clip, and I'm good for the entire flight. You may have heard this next tip before, but I always like to include it. Wear your thickest, heaviest, bulkiest items on the plane. Yes, this may mean that you're going to be a little bit more stuffy and hot, but if you're an overpacker like me, it means that I can take the more bulky, big things that wouldn't fit in my carry-on bag. I can still take them with me on my trip, and I get to have all the stuff that I want, especially if I'm going to a cold climate. This next tip is from the nurse and me, but please, if you're on a flight that's more than 2 hours long, get up every couple of hours and walk around. Most people don't think about this, but you actually run a potential risk to get a blood clot when you're sitting in a seat for that long and not getting good circulation to your lower legs. This is greatly increased when you're on those long haul flights that are 6, 8, 10, 12 hours, or like our 16-hour flight when we went to the Maldives for our honeymoon. So getting up and walking around every couple of hours keeps some circulation going on in your legs, your ankles, and your feet. And another tip to go right in the same vein, see what I did there? Try to avoid resting the backs of your knees directly against the seat. And this is because the area behind your knee, if you constantly have this pressure sitting back here, you're actually cutting off blood circulation to your lower extremities, therefore increasing your risk again of getting a blood clot. If you're not able to get out of your seat, you can also do some other exercises like performing heel-toe foot pumps, pedal pushes with your legs back and forth, ankle rotations back and forth, and you can try getting some compression stockings. Just make sure if you do get compression stockings that they're the right size that you need, because there again, if you get some that are too small, you may end up cutting off circulation to parts of your leg, ankles, or feet, and just kind of making a problem that didn't need to be there. Speaking of long haul flights, Our 16-hour flight to the Maldives really taught us some stuff, and if you want to know all the tips to make your next long-haul flight the best, watch this video next.